Hey, everybody, this is Janet Boynes with Healing and Made Free with Janet Boynes Ministry. I have a special guest today, and her name is Nicole. And Nicole is going to share her story. There was something that happened at her daughter's school, and I was so excited to have her interview to share her story because I think it's happening all over the world. And it has something to do with the vice principal or the principal, and I'm going to let her share a story because I will get it all wrong. But Nicole, daughter got involved with the assistant principal. There was pornography involved, and we know pornography is $1 billion industry. And to get our kids involved in something like this is horrific. Everybody, welcome Nicole. Nicole, welcome to Healing and Made Free with Janet Boynes.
Hi, thank you so much.
Nicole, I want you to just feel free to share your story. I will interject periodically, but share about your story of what happened to your daughter at her school and what the assistant principal did to groom your daughter.
Sure. Yeah, my daughter was in 6th grade at middle school. She was just this super bright, friendly, outgoing kid, and pretty naive and sheltered. I definitely was a protective parent and kept her away from anything that I thought was dangerous or scary. She started to get kind of interested in boys, as they do at that age, and she met a 12-year-old, 13-year-old boy online. A lot of her friends knew who this was, and they were friends with him as well. And he really, started to make her feel special. And they were, dating, even though they'd never met. They talked on the phone not on the phone, but texting and that kind of thing. And as time went on, he started to ask for nude pictures, and the conversation started to turn more sexual over time. She started to, question what was going on. She knew deep down that that wasn't right or appropriate. So she started talking to the assistant principal at the school about this as someone who is, all the kids loved. He was really easy to talk to, and kind of was helping her with other things in her life too. So she felt really safe and comfortable with him. So she went to him and said, I've got this boyfriend. He's asking for this type of material. What should I do? And just wanted advice. And his response was, this is all perfectly normal. This is what boys do. This is what you do when you're in a relationship, and really encouraged it to continue. So I knew nothing. She didn't discuss it with me at all, but she had been talking to him. Some more time went by. She did end up sending pictures, some videos. She received some pictures and videos. And then I was at work one day, and the sheriff's department called and said they needed to talk to me. And when I met with them, they said that my daughter was the victim of a sexual predator, that she had been conversing with an adult male online, and that she thought that it was a child, but it wasn't. It was a man. And at that point, we didn't know who it was, didn't really know what was going on, just that, she had been a victim. So at that point, I actually called the assistant principal to let him know that something was going on with Maya. Maybe he could keep an eye on her, just kind of watch out for her while this unfolded. Well, he didn't answer, so I left a message. A couple of days later, sheriff's department came back to my house and told me that this assistant principal was actually posing as a 12-year-old boy to get this material from underage girls.
Oh my gosh.
As the case developed and we learned more, it turned out that he had been talking to 55 underage girls and had received pictures from them.
It is, that's enough in and of itself. He didn't wind up having a sexual relationship with your daughter, did he?
He did not. No, it
How,
was, thankfully, it was all online pictures, inappropriate conversation.
do you think he
Um,
was looking for girls that he felt were vulnerable and that maybe they didn't really have a family life or they weren't close to their families, or he could see that maybe, and I'm not saying your daughter was, but sometimes they're looking for people that feel like they're needy. And
mhm,
again, you said this earlier, she started trusting him, and
mhm.
then they start grooming them to, also do prostitution, and
Yeah.
then eventually corner them into coming to their house.
Yeah, I believe it was
This,
headed that way. And he definitely learned about the victims. He learned about my daughter right away and knew that, she had a tough relationship with her dad. There were
mm,
some situations there that he was, trying to help her with supposedly. So um, he knew, and that's what he looked for, and that's what he wanted.
so the police officers must have been tracking him. They must have had their eye on him.
It took a long time. One of the other victims' parents had actually brought it up to the school a couple of times that, there's something odd going on. This kid knows all these girls at the middle school, but he's not a student there. Um, so, I think they learned about it too late, but
Right.
then they did track him, and they found out pretty quickly what was going on.
Was he married?
Yes.
Kids?
Yep, he has little
That
kids.
that's pretty ridiculous. How old was your daughter at that time?
This was when she was 12 to 13, right around there.
Really?
Yeah.
Once you found out about your daughter, did she change in any way, meaning her personality? Did she draw inward? Was she more outgoing? What was she like before and after that happened, if she changed?
She became a completely different person. She was she was such an outgoing kid. She was captain of the swim team. She was class president. She was you know, everybody's friend. All the teachers loved her. She would go into school early and help teachers out in the mornings. I mean, just such a, what you would consider a perfect kid. And after this, her trust for adults was just destroyed. Um,
Mhm.
Really suspicious of men, and um, relationships just aren't the same. She's
Yeah.
really, really quick to reject people and not get too close.
How old is she now?
She's 18 now.
Is she wanting to date, or she just looks at men as predators, or is she any type of relationship?
Um, she is right now. She's in a relationship with an older man, which is a struggle for me as a parent.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's hard for me to really reconcile that with what's happened to her, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm just I have to just kind of let her make her mistakes now that she's 18. But
Mm-hmm.
um,
Can I ask how old this person is that she's in a
I,
relationship with? Feel free to answer or not answer. It's really up to you. I want you to be comfortable.
yeah, I think he's 25.
Yeah. I wonder, if there is something within an older gentleman that she is searching for. Is she
Mhm.
looking for that father figure and somebody who, is going to look after her? She has mom already, but do you think maybe she's looking for that in an older man or this
I think
older
so.
gentleman?
There's
Hmm.
definitely some psychology going on there that is hard to really comprehend, but
Do,
it's sad to watch. And I know that, a lot of her struggles she has now really stem from this incident, and
mhm.
it's unfortunate.
The reason why I took interest in your story is when I was raped by my mother's husband. And she wasn't married to him. And then I found out another person in my family was raped by the same man like 10 years later. So we didn't really know about each other. And it really took me down a downward spiral. I literally hate Black men because I associated Black men with a rape and abuse because that's what I grew up in. And so for your daughter, I think when I heard about the story or saw your video, my fear was that would she hate men and want to go into a homosexual life? Because that's what happened to me. Even though I was going to walk down the aisle, I started hating men. I despised them. And I thought any man that I get involved with, they're either going to rape me or beat me, like my mother was beaten, my late mother, whose 2-year anniversary is actually tomorrow that my mom had passed away. But have you thought about that at all, that she could go down that path?
Yeah, I'm really worried about, a lot of the different paths she could go down. I don't want to discuss it too much, but there's, she has gone down a scary path, and it's heartbreaking as a parent to watch that and knowing why, and that, somebody for their own sexual pleasure can just absolutely destroy a life or drastically alter its course. It's
I don't want to get away from the predator that, as far as I'm concerned, emotionally raped your child, as far as I'm concerned. Let's call it what it is.
Yeah.
What has happened to him? Is he in jail? Is he out of jail?
Well, kind of the main reason why I speak now and why I tell the story, it would be easy to just, let it go, move on, try to forget and forgive. But the reason that I speak is because when all this came out, he was looking at probation for what he did. He would get, no jail time, just probation. And that really opened my eyes to what is happening with these predators, and what they get away with is just unbelievable.
Right.
Luckily, in this case, because of some of the other charges and more evidence that was submitted, the charges went federal, which was a huge blessing, because that meant that he could be charged under the federal sentencing guidelines. So he did end up getting 25 years in prison.
Praise God. Good.
He's currently serving that.
I hate to say this, but the impact that has on the girls that he took advantage of, but I think about his wife. I think about his own children and how they even look at him, not only as a husband, but as a father, knowing that, he did this to all these young ladies. But it's happening too often, where predators are going after our children and taking advantage of them. And I'm actually sick of it because it happened to me. But have you thought about, as a mom, what can be done to try to stop these predators from going after our children? The laws have to change. We know this happened in Minneapolis, Minnesota, which is, out of all 50 states, very high in rape victims, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did you hear that? Or?
Well, honestly, I think the sentencing guidelines are going to be key. Right now, we're attracting these monsters to the state. They're coming here because sentencing is so lax, and they can do what they do and not have a lot of repercussions for it. They can get away with it. If there was a stiffer penalty for what they're doing, I think it would at least slow down. And
when you say stiffer penalty, what do you mean stiffer? What would you like to see happen to these predators?
I think anybody who's preying on our children needs to serve time. There's no probation. Probation is not that's not acceptable to me. You need to serve time. And
Are they signing up as sex offenders? Because when that happens, they should be, it should be a book every time they get out of jail that goes out to every parent or via mail or something saying, hey, there's a sex offender that lives in your area. We want you to be aware, keep an eye on your children, but they don't do that.
No, and in fact, something that I just recently learned a couple of weeks ago is if you don't serve time, you don't register. So if you get probation or something like that, you're not a sex offender. You're not on the list.
It's sad because it seems like somebody can get caught with drugs and they can go to jail for 20 or 30 years. And you have a predator, somebody that rapes our children, rapes babies, and then kill our children, and they get out.
Yep. It's insane.
It's insane. It doesn't make sense. You can have somebody that rape our child, a teacher, a father, or a young man. They'll go to jail for 5 years, and that's it.
Yeah.
But if you kill somebody, or on drugs, or a guy just say beat somebody up, they're in jail for almost a lifetime. Something's wrong with this system. Let me ask you a question here, Nicole. As a parent, do you have any guilt? Do you think, if I would have done this, or if I would have did this, maybe this wouldn't happen? Or what can parents do differently that you feel like you could have done to maybe for this maybe not to happen? Maybe it would have happened, but do you feel guilt, or do you feel like you could have done something differently?
Every day I feel guilt. And where I really struggle is, I wanted to give my daughter the privacy I thought she deserved. And I wanted to, let her know that I trusted her. When I gave her a cell phone, we talked about things, we talked about sending pictures and, talking to inappropriate people. We discussed it, but I wanted her to know that I trusted her, and I wanted her to have her privacy. And I think that did her a huge disservice, because she was so naive, and she didn't know what she should be looking out for. And I should have been monitoring her phone. I should have not put such a high priority on her privacy and watched out for her closer. And that's something that I'll have to live with.
Thank you for saying that. I want to say to the parents out there, what Nicole said. I think you should take heed, because our children will say to you, parents, you don't give me no privacy. You don't trust me. Well, you know what? They're not paying rent. You buy their cell phones, and you deserve to go into their room 24/7 if you would like. Look under their beds, look on their cell phone, look at their apps, especially the ones that look like math. When you go behind it, there's pornography, and they can go somewhere else. You should be going through it on a regular basis. And the sad thing, and not for you parents to feel guilt, do your job. Stop trying to be your child's best friend. You are not their friend.
Yes.
They have better friends. Go get some friends, parents. Your child isn't your best friend. I'm sorry, Nicole, but I really don't like when parents go, oh, my child's my best friend. Are you kidding me? Go get a life. And that's why our children are doing what they are doing, is because, number one, you're afraid of them. Number two, you're afraid you're going to lose them. Well, let me tell you something. I believe God is faithful. I believe that if we have our children more in church than doing all the other things, I'm not saying they will not go out and do things that they're not supposed to, but at least they have a foundation. At least they know they can trust in the Lord. And I think that's important. And maybe you did do this with your daughter, but there are times, parents, when your child might do something they're not supposed to. But you know what? If you're searching their phones, it could be a teachable moment. Maybe you can find out what's really going on inside of that child. I suffered in silence from the age of 13 till I was 21. I was afraid to tell my mother. because she was a no nonsense kind of person. But if we had a very good relationship and we communicated better, I would have been able to talk with her about what happened to me. But I suffered in silence, and it took me down a dark path where I almost lost my life, where I almost transitioned and went from being a female to a male. Yes, I live a life of homosexuality, and that's my concern. When our girls or boys get raped by someone, of the opposite sex, they really don't want to have a relationship with that person of the opposite sex, especially women. There's an 80% of women who live a homosexual life have been raped. And there's 60% of men had some type of sexual abuse, or they looked at pornography, or something happened to them to send them down that dark path. Fathers, it's so important that you have a relationship with your child, with your sons and your daughters. Take them out on daddy-daughter, dates. Moms, take your son out on a date. Make him open the door for you, and do the things, because you know what? You train up a child and the way he or she goes, they might depart for a while, but they'll come home. The sad thing is, where our children are going down a dark path and our parents have become afraid of them. Nicole, take a few minutes and talk to the parents as much time as you want. Talk to the parents out there, because as a parent, you went down this dark path, and you might be able to say things to them that they're dealing with today, but fear has stopped them from maybe going into their child's room, or finding out what books are in the library, like homosexuality that they're hiding, and all these other things, which they want to teach a lot of this stuff in schools. I think it's up to the parents to teach our children those type of things. Talk to the parents for me, please.
Yeah, I mean, everything you just said, it's so important to just really know what your children are doing. And the only way to do that sometimes is to invade their privacy and to be nosy. Talk to their friends, find out where they're going, where they're hanging out, who the parents are at these houses that you're sending your kids to. That's so important too. There's so many times that my kids have friends over, and I don't even know the parents. They're just sending them to my house. They don't know who's here. We have to be more careful, because the world out there is so scary, and there's so many dangers, and our kids are so naive that they don't even know what they should be looking out for. We need to use our experience and our age to help them, to guide them, and to show them what is acceptable, what's not acceptable, what is risky and what's not. Because they just don't know. And it's okay that they don't know. They shouldn't know at their age. But and the other thing too is listening. When your kid is trying to tell you something, you have to be able to acknowledge that and understand, they're really trying to say something here, and I need to listen, and I might need to ask some questions and figure out what's actually going on. We just get so busy and so preoccupied that I think we forget to do that. But just take the time to find out what your kid is doing, how they're feeling, and what's really going on in their life is just invaluable.
Wow, that's really good. And even social media, our kids are so caught up in social media. I went on a fast, every year as a pastor. I'm credentialed under the Assemblies of God, and we go, churches do fast. And I did a 21-day fast from social media. The first 2 days, I was picking up my phone and putting it down, picking it up. I mean, literally, it seemed like every 5 minutes. But after the 5th day, oh my gosh, I thought this feels so good.
Really?
Especially when you have to post thing and people are emailing you. It felt so good. When the 21-day came, I didn't even want to get back on social media. It says it takes 21 days to break a habit. That habit was broken. And now I really monitor my social media. I'll post something and get off. I might check it now 3 times. I don't even hardly check it when I go to bed. I'm not picking it up, looking at it. because it felt so good. It's just so much crummy stuff out there. People are saying some of the rudest things. And
Mhm.
our children are taking a lot of that in. And if they see other people doing it, they're going to want to do it too. And most of these children that are posting these things are miserable. They're
Yeah.
not happy. And so what you said, Nicole, I think parents need to be a little more invested in their children instead of working 24/7 and going out and having a great time, or just say, hey, watch TV or do this or do that. Make them go outside and climb a tree. There's tons of them out there. Kick them out of the house and make them go in
Uh-huh.
the backyard and play in the leaves. Priscilla
Yeah.
Shire used to say her boys were like, Mom, we're boys, we're bored. And she said, you see them trees out there? Go enjoy them. Go climb them, swing
Mhm.
from them. I don't care, but you're going to get out of here. You're not getting on your
Yeah.
phones. And we have to be a lot more strict with our children, especially, nowadays, because our children are growing up a lot differently.
Mhm.
Is there anything else that you would like to say to the audience out there before we close?
Just what I always like to say is, get out and vote and um, really push our lawmakers to change the sentencing guidelines for sexual predators. I think it's so important, and they need to hear our voices, and we need to let them know that, Minnesota values children. Um, Everywhere should value their children. I just can't understand why there's any opposition to it. So um, that's my soapbox for sure.
I'm going to put this out there and you do whatever you want with it, but Michelle Bachman, I remember when I was talking with her, she got me to write her for my first book. That's what made her run for office.
Yeah.
She didn't like what they were teaching her children in the schools, and she ran for office. Maybe you should run for office someday, and take on the challenge. We need
Yeah.
somebody like you on Capitol Hill, fighting for our children, because they just don't get it. I don't know. I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. For some reason, they're not getting it. And we need to get better at standing up for righteousness, right standing with God, and doing what is right and true based on biblical principles. And I talk with parents all the time, and there's a lot of parents that are walking around in fear.
Yeah.
Parents, you are walking in fear. But you know what? You have the power when it comes to your children being in school. I was reading something that I posted over a year ago. I think it was in London. It was a Hispanic school. They wanted to teach homosexuality to their children. You know what? All 800 parents took all their kids out of school until they changed the curriculum. You know what? They
Nice.
changed the curriculum. You know why? Because you have power. If your children don't go to school, if they don't go to school, the school doesn't get paid.
Yeah.
Walk out, take your kids out of school for the full week. See how they like that. They're not teaching anyone. The problem is parents are like, well, what am I going to do with them? I got to go to work. You know what? Your work is going to be there. You can find another job. You can't find another child if somebody snatches them and rapes them and kill them like they're doing out there in the world today. We have so many children that are missing. And sometimes we don't get it until it happens to us. Just like I travel the country and speak on homosexuality. And a lot of times I'm speaking at schools and churches, and parents are like, oh my gosh, I heard you speak, but I never thought it was going to happen to me. So you don't become knowledgeable and you don't get involved. Get involved with your child. What's going on at school? Ask your teachers, what are they teaching your children? And are they doing a background check on everybody that they're hiring? I think that's important. Maybe they would have caught this assistant principal.
Yeah.
He's a predator.
Yeah. The thing
Did
with
they
background
do a
checks
background
too, is
check?
it's only in, it only covers the state that you're in. So if you commit a crime in a different state, it's not going to show up. And to your other point, it does take something like this hitting close to home for people to care. And for me, that is not acceptable, because hitting close to home means that more children are being victimized. And that's not
Exactly.
okay.
And that's what I felt about when I was raped. by my mother's husband at the age of 13. I didn't say anything until I was 21. But if he raped another family member, how many other girls or boys did he rape back then? And I keep thinking, if I would have said something, maybe he would have got caught. Maybe we could have turned him in. And I kept my mouth shut out of fear. Well, you know what? At the age of 63, that fear is gone. I will come after you head on.
Yes.
Make no mistake about it, because I'm not the one that is afraid. And
No.
we're going to start standing up. Parents, feel free to reach out to my ministry. Go to my website. If you're dealing with homosexuality, or you have a child that is dealing with pornography, and you want to maybe have a conversation with Nicole, we'll make that happen, because you know what? She's going to be an advocate for this issue. And maybe she can give you good pointers on what she could have done differently, and maybe what you could do differently. We got to come together, and we got to stand together, and we got to fight for righteousness and get God back in the schools. Let's get God back where he belongs, in our schools. You always want us to pray for you, but they don't want to go to church, or they don't want to read their Bible, and we want to keep taking God out of schools, and we want to take trusting God out of away from our money, or God we trust, and all those things. He's our answer. Nicole, thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with me and allow me to interview you. This can't always be easy, because every time I share my story about going into homosexuality and being raped, it just brings up them memories again, and it makes me, get more upset, but it makes me more of a fighter. Everybody out there,
it's tough to do, but it is so important. And I definitely respect you for being able to talk, because it's going to help other people. So that's how I feel too.
It's going to get out there. We're going to put this on my website. And parents, I'm Janet Boynes. My last name is Boynes. You can go to my Google me and find my website. Reach out to me if you're struggling, with homosexuality, drugs, alcohol. We'll get you some help. Go buy my book if you're dealing with homosexuality. And thank you for listening to Healing and Made Free with Janet Boynes Ministries. Nicole, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Until next time.